of the intro. Hey, I have an intro slide with all of my information that most people know, so I'll kind of skip that. But one thing I did want to share is two new things. I have a new title at Auth0, which is Developer Media Manager, Developer Marketing Media Manager, which means I get to work more with YouTube videos and Twitter Spaces, and we're actually going to start doing TikTok in the near future, which I'm super excited about. So that's fun. And then also I've adopted kind of a new tagline of I teach developers through content. So like embracing my love for teaching, working with developers, and then doing that through content creation in a lot of different formats. But what I want to start talking about is the fact that code is super empowering. I probably am preaching to the choir of the majority of people in here having gone through a boot camp and either transition careers or in the process of transitioning careers. But the cool thing with code is you can do almost anything with code. You can connect people, you can solve a problem, you can connect to things. We'll actually talk a little bit about that. The light that's on my thumb back here in a second. You can help the world, but most importantly, you can solve your own problems, and you can do that through automation. So we'll get to the automation stuff in a second, but I wanted to tell, unfortunately, a story that probably most of you know from me teaching, but a story about the first app that I built. So I was in college, and I look back at like my college career studying computer science, and it was never something that I like appreciated or really like learned to appreciate. It was just school. It was getting good grades and passing tests and homework assignments and stuff. But I decided at one point that I wanted to build an Android app. And I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never really done anything outside of class. And I decided to do it, and somebody gave me a book. And I was just kind of like going through this tutorial book, following like, here, do this, do this, do this, which is fine. And it was interesting, but I got like pretty bored and realized like I just want to build something that I'm excited about. So I kind of scrapped the book, and I started using Google, and I wanted to build this Harry Potter trivia app, again, that I've talked about before. And just Googled everything I needed to know. Like every roadblock I hit, I went and Googled it. I figured it out. I made it to the next step. I Googled again, made it to the next step, and eventually published this app that like at some point had like 30,000 downloads in the Android store, which is really, really wild. And the moral of that whole story was going back to that feeling of empowerment. Like once you create something like that, you feel like, and I know people in here can resonate with this, like there's almost nothing you can't do. Like you start to really appreciate the power of code, what it can do for you, what it can do for your career, what you can use it to do for others, and then what you can use it to do for yourself. And probably the most important takeaway for me with that was this idea of transforming myself from a consumer to a producer. Again, we've talked about this in class, unfortunately, but like most people have a consumer mindset. They walk around the world and they kind of see things for what they are, and they accept things for what they are, and they never have this opposite side, which is a producer. As a producer now, like after feeling empowered with code, feeling that I can build things myself and I can solve problems myself, I no longer necessarily look at things the way they are. I look at things the way they could be. I look at things the way that I could change them. I look at how I can maybe build something to solve a problem, or maybe build something better than an existing solution, all because I realized that I was capable of doing that with code. So that transformation of going from a consumer to a producer, I think is kind of the epitome of what the impact that code can have on your life, on your career, and so on. So I mentioned that this talk is about automating things, and this one is more specifically like not just code. It's about the Jamstack, and I'll tell you a little bit about what the Jamstack is to kick this off. The tough part is, and I wish I need like a shrug GIF or something. There's no real great definition for what the Jamstack is. Honestly, if you polled like 100 developers on Twitter and you ask them what the Jamstack is, you get some variation in every single answer that you get. You see some similarities, but every answer would be somewhat different. So you can start with like just the acronym. So the JAM, the JM, and the Jamstack does stand for something that is universal. And it's JavaScript is the J, A is APIs, and M is the markup. And there's an image here I have from Free Code Camp that kind of breaks this down a little bit, although I think some of it's slightly confusing as well. But JavaScript, think about the front-end frameworks that are most popular right now. Things like React, Vue, Angular, Svelte. You could do vanilla JavaScript. JavaScript is kind of ubiquitous. You can build it You can use it to build front ends, back ends, mobile apps, desktop apps, basically anything you want to do. You can most likely build it with JavaScript. But in this case, we're kind of talking about these front end frameworks. And then on the API side, conveniently, this graphic has Auth0, which is the company I work for, as the icon in the top left. Also conveniently is Cloudinary in the top right, which is a company that I represent as a cloud or a media developer expert on behalf of them. But APIs, a lot of what that has become is just different services that do things for us that we can interact with. So we can go and create data, create, read, update, delete data, make things happen by interacting with these APIs that other products or services or companies give to us. They expose to us to be able to do things. On the markup side, basically these icons are static site generators. And what that means is it will, at a build time, during a build process, it will go and grab all the information that it needs for like every single page of your site. If you think about a blog being the common example, it will grab all the details for every single page and basically build that page out to a set of static files. And those files will just be ready to host somewhere on a CDN. So these are static site generators, Gatsby, Hugo. I think Scully is the bottom left one, which is not super popular. And I'm not sure that that's Scully in the first place. But Levity is another one, which is just built on vanilla JavaScript. And the way I look at the Jamstack is it's really a new way to combine old things. Like JavaScript is not new. JavaScript has been around for years. APIs have been around for years. We've been working with APIs and different services for years. We've been working with markup for a long time. A common example of that is Markdown, which is what a lot of people kind of think about in terms of the Jamstack. People will probably use Markdown for like their GitHub readmes and that sort of stuff. It's been around for forever. So none of these individual things are really new. It's just a new way to combine things that have already existed. Now there's new services and products and companies and things that are kind of built around this idea of the Jamstack. But really fundamentally, it's just a new way to combine things, combine old things. And it also has a focus on static content. And this is another, like, not hotly debated, but if you ask people what a static website is, you'll get a bunch of different answers. And so the definition of static content is still not very clear. But the Jamstack has this big focus on static content in the sense that there's a static set of assets that you can host on a content delivery network, CDN. And the way you get these is typically through some sort of build process as opposed to real time. So if you think about going to a blog page, in some cases, the server might go and reach out to a database, grab the information, use that to then generate the page and send it back to the user. So that's a real-time generation of that page versus a lot of what the Jamstack revolves around is statically building those pages. That's fun. Do y'all see this? That PowerPoint just crashed. Okay. Did y'all happen to see, I posted about this on TikTok and I gave a presentation that I forgot to share my slides and PowerPoint crashed during the middle of it. And so I'm like profusely apologizing to the audience for like my slides crashing and they didn't see any of it and no one said anything. So that was that experience. Maybe I need to figure out something. Maybe it could be, honestly, which would be really sad because that's half the fun. So I will awkwardly scroll through all the slides that I just went through. All right. So static content would be something that goes through some sort of build process, and then the files are just kind of sitting there. So when you need that file, it's just going to send it back to you. It doesn't have to make a real-time request to a database. It doesn't need necessarily a full backend. And what that leads to is a bunch of different advantages in the Jamstack. Performance, if you think about like those files are kind of just ready for you to request and get back. There's no database calls, nothing to slow it down. It's just sending that file back to you. So it's going to be really performant. It's going to be really secure. I'm not having to manage a backend. I'm not having to create a node server, update a node server, patch a node server, be aware of security updates and things like that. I don't have to worry about that at all. It's super scalable because I can just replicate these files all across the world and have them, like if you're in the US, request them from somewhere that's close to the US. And if you're in Japan, request them from a data center that's in Japan. And then it also has a really excellent developer experience. Jamstack really changed, for me, the way that I look at building applications, and I think for a lot of people as well, in a way that really just simplified it. So those are the general kind of accepted benefits of the Jamstack. But a few things that I love about the Jamstack, first and foremost, is that it's oftentimes free and or at the very least cheap to host and get started. So they've got all these different services that you can use, have free tiers. And like my personal site is on a free tier of Netlify, and it uses a free tier of Sanity.io, and it uses a free tier of Cloudinary. Like all the things that I use, I can combine them to build whatever application I need. And until it gets really, really successful, I can stay free and cheap and easy to get started. I can also just build things a lot faster. Talked about like APIs like Auth0 or Cloudinary. APIs or services or companies that take care of some of the complicated stuff for you so that I don't have to worry about. Jamstack enables me to build things faster. We'll see the usage of several of those in a few minutes. And honestly, everyone else is using it. Like it's one of those things that you see if you're in the Twitter ecosystem, if you're in Discords and Slacks and meetups and stuff, you hear people talking over and over and over again about the Jamstack. And that's kind of been the epitome for me of like, after I hear people talk about something for a while, I know it's probably time for me to go and look into that thing myself and maybe start creating some content around it or use it to build something in my site or a demo site. So it's one of those fun things to be a part of, to be honest, because you feel like you're on the modern end of web development and everybody else is doing it. So maybe that's the number one reason I use the Jamstack. So by thinking about it's free and cheap to host, easy to get started, it's easier to build things. And we talked about earlier, like you can use code to help other people, which is obviously great. You can use code to solve problems, but you can also combine that to solve problems for yourself. And you can start to look at, well, maybe how can I use the Jamstack to make my life easier? And that's exactly what I did. And that leads us into the 5 things that I've automated with the Jamstack. So the first one is I've automated tweets. And I don't know if I may pull up Twitter and see if I can scroll back to find one of these. But a little bit of background with this. One of my goals for this year, as I've grown as a content creator in my audience and just the amount of content that I create, is to help support other community content creators. Because some people like have really good content, but don't yet have the audience or the following or the visibility for the stuff that they do. And I really want to help bring visibility to other people that are doing really awesome stuff. So that was one of my goals this year, was to support content creators. Part of that comes in the form of my Discord, Learn, Build, Teach Discord. And so we have tons of people there that are content creators that are creating content, like honestly, all the time. And so there's this kind of like best of both worlds thing where I want to support content creators. And it just so happens that I run a Discord that's full of content creators that I can help support. So the problem with supporting content creators is like kind of not knowing exactly how. And the simple thing would be like to go and grab links of things they create and go and tweet about it, right? Like that's the simplest example. It honestly takes like more time and effort, honestly, than you think it would to just go and grab these links and then like tweet them at appropriate times. It's not a huge deal, but it's one of those things like if you're constantly like that's something that's constantly on your mind, you're having to think about it, go grab it, tweet it, or schedule it in another app. And I wanted to kind of not have to do that, honestly. And so what I came up with is combining a set of technologies. You'll see a lot of these reused in different ways. This is using Node.js. This is using Heroku to host the Node.js project. It's Airtable for my data, and then it's the Twitter API for actually scheduling those tweets. So I'll scroll. I apologize. I'm going to have to scroll through all the open projects that I have to show you all of this. But inside of Airtable, I've got a page here for the Learn, Build, Teach Discord. And none of this stuff per se is private. But what happens is I created a Twitch bot. And that Twitch bot listens for, or excuse me, we're not to Twitch yet, a Discord bot. So when people send a specific command, my bot is going to listen for that command. And there's one command called a share command. And I would pull over Discord to show you what that looks like, but I'm streaming in Discord, so I can't quite do that. But what happens is as people create content, they create a blog post or an article, or they create a GitHub repository or something like that. They can run the share command in my Discord and pass it a link. And what my Discord bot will do is it will listen for that share command. It will listen to who's posting it. It will also combine that with the profile of the different users in Discord. So I've given them the ability to, like, through commands in Discord, update their profile that I keep track of, which is like mostly a way for me to know a little bit of information about website and YouTube and that sort of stuff, but primarily in this case to get their Twitter handle, because some people don't have consistent names across Discord, across Twitter, across different platforms. So what I can do is I can listen for who that Discord user is, grab their like Discord ID, go and reference that inside of this Discord user table, grab their Twitter handle, and now I've got all the information that I need to go ahead and post this thing to Twitter. So when they post this link, out of that website, out of that link, you can kind of scrape it and grab the OG metadata, the metadata in the head. So you can get things like the title, you can grab the image, you can grab the description, and you can grab all those things automatically just from the link that they share. Marry that data up with their Discord ID to their Twitter handle, and then create a bot that I'll show you in a second. I actually didn't open that project, but I'll talk about it in a second, to post this thing every night. But the one thing that I can't quite get past, I can't fully automate, is I need to make sure that people don't post bad links, right? So if I give them this innate ability to just share a link, most likely people in my Discord are really good and they're going to share links that are relevant to people. And that's great, but it doesn't stop someone from not doing that, from posting something that's inappropriate. So what I can do, this is the manual part of this, is I have all these different things in here that people have shared, and I can scroll through and just kind of skim these to say, okay, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good. And what this is a Boolean inside of Airtable called tweetable. I also have one for emailable that I'll talk about in a second. And what this does is allows my bot, as it runs every night, which it runs in the middle of the night, to go and search through the records in here that are tweetable and have not been tweeted yet, and to tweet them. So if I scroll, I don't know how recently I've had one. Hopefully it's somewhere recent. I don't want to like sit here and scroll through all of my stuff because I haven't updated some of them to be tweetable yet. And there's all my, okay, it may not. Maybe farther down. I actually think it was this one. This, I think, was automatic. Anyway, what it does is every night I've got a cron job. A cron job is something that you can run on a given time. So you can run it like once a night at 12 o'clock. And that's what I think it's 11 or 12. So every night at 11 or 12 o'clock, I have this Node app that's in Heroku that will wake up. It will go search in Airtable, grab the first record that is tweetable, that hasn't been tweeted before, tweet that thing, and then also update it with a Boolean that says tweeted so that I make sure that I don't tweet it again. So this way, like every once in a while, I just come through here and I hit these checkboxes. You can see some people individually create a lot of content. And I just go through and like, all right, that looks good, that looks good. Like as long as I can spot check these just to make sure, then I can approve them and let them be tweeted. And so I tweet out almost every night, although you saw there's a gap because I hadn't like updated some to be tweetable, a link from the community to be able to support them. It's automated. They share it. All I have to do is go through in here and click this tweetable button. And then after that, it's ready to go. Let's scroll through all these projects again. Oh, that was the demo, by the way. Oh no, it got rid of it was using an emoji. That's lame. Anyway. So the next thing I automated is my cover images, and I would actually, I don't know the best way to do this. Can I have a volunteer for someone that will participate with me? The correct answer is yes. What's the best way? All right, Becca came off mute to say it. Zach just held his hand up, so I'll send it to Becca.
Yeah, go ahead and give it to her.
Becca, can you do me a favor? I'm going to send you a message. What form? I'm going to send you a link and fill out that thing while I'm talking, and I'll come back to what that is exactly in a second. Basically, It's a form to come on a live stream with me, which if you want to, we can schedule you to do that, but no pressure. This is just for demo purposes. So a little bit of background with this. is I run weekly live streams with a guest called Learning Quick. And it's kind of a double entendre thing. Like in the South, I don't say this, but people inappropriately say this, like, I'm going to learn you something, mean I'm going to teach you something. So this is like someone is learning me something. They're learning quick. And then also like learning quickly in an hour or so. So I run these streams, and the problem is that I spend lots of time working with guests to get their information and scheduling times and promoting the stream and that sort of stuff. And I was looking for a way to help simplify that process, automate a lot of that process. So technologies that are in here are Netlify, hosting this in Netlify, using serverless functions in Netlify, using Cloudinary for generating the cover images, using Airtable for automations and the form that Becca is filling out, using Calendly to let people schedule a time, and then also Notion to send them a link to notes. Jeez Louise. Okay, I don't know what to expect with this from now on. So I'll keep talking while that's loading. So my goal was to use all these technologies to automate any of that I could. So Becca, have you had a chance to go to that link? Yes? Cool.
Yes, I'm still working on it.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I will open another table that I have in Airtable for my live streams. So inside of my live streams, these are all the ones that I have scheduled and coming up. This one was actually Friday. It's got an automated thing to filter it after it's a week old. So I think it'll archive this like this Friday in a couple of days. But these are the upcoming streams. And what's going to happen, pending Becca filling this out, is when people fill out this form, it creates this record inside of Airtable where I have basically all the information about the guest that I need to. So I need their name, their title, their company if they want to, their Twitter handle, so I can use that. I'll link to their profile picture. This is important. Description, email, all these things. And then I have general information about the stream itself where I need time and date and an image. And so if you look at like all these images, they're basically the same, right? Like it's my picture stays the same every time. Then we have the guest picture comes on. We have a title, we have featuring, we have their name, their title, and then their title, and then the date. So all that stuff is pretty much the same. It just changes with like a few pieces of information change based on who the actual guest is. So what I've got in here is a generate button. This generate button, I'll start to scroll back over here. I can actually close this site, I think, or this project. This generate button will call a serverless function that's inside of Netlify. So it calls the LQ cover. And what it's doing here is trying to call this function so that this function can generate the cover image for it. And then Airtable can use that to save it inside of that record. So it grabs the information, title, guest name, guest title, blah, blah, blah. It checks to make sure the data looks good. It does a little bit of fancy stuff, and then it generates this. Actually, it's technically a URL for the image, and I'll tell you why in a second. So it takes that information. It uses Cloudinary, and I can pull open this as well. So if I come into Cloudinary, you'll see in a second that I have like a base image. So every stream cover image will have this as its background, and then we just add stuff onto it dynamically. So I look inside of my media library and my Learning Quick folder here. I've got the template somewhere in here, this one. So if you notice, that looks familiar, like it's got the Learning Quick thing in the top, it's got my image, but it doesn't have any of the text. So what I can do with Cloudinary is I can say, use that thing as basically like the start of the image, and let's add on all of these other things to it. So here's the first line of the title, the second line of the title, the featuring text, the guest name, the guest title, the date, all that stuff, all the information that I need. I send it over to the serverless function. It uses Cloudinary to generate a URL for this image, and what that URL is inside of it. It includes all the transformations that are necessary for this image. So if I look at, like, I can actually open up one of these. This is a really ridiculously long URL. As you can see, it's a little bit small. The point is that it's super long. So inside of all of that is all the details to make these transformations and generate this cover image.
Thanks.
So do
I'm
I have...
what I have.
Say what?
Rachel needs to mute.
There it is. Becca, did you fill out the form?
Sure did.
Oh, well, then you broke my demo because it's not working.
Awesome.
Confused by that. It should.
I got the thank you message saying that I filled it out.
Well, that's good. Okay. What will happen? There may just be a delay on Airtable side. What will happen is all that information comes in, and then based on that information, I may tweak the title a little bit if I need to, but I click this generate button. It sends that request over to the serverless function. It generates that URL for the image, and then it shows that image right here, which is pretty sweet. So I no longer have to it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but if I did not automate this, I'd have to have a template in Figma or Canvas or something like that. And every time swap out the image, the title, the guest name, and the date. But now I have all that stuff automated so that I can easily create the cover image and be able to promote it and have that inside of my records for my streams going forward. I might kind of ignore this. Another aspect of this is my newsletter. So I run a newsletter almost every week. I don't do it every week just because it still takes a little bit of time, and sometimes I don't have it. But I wanted to use that to highlight the content that I've created and then content from the community. And I was spending tons of time getting the appropriate links that I wanted, images that I needed for videos and things, and then miscellaneous details to include in each newsletter. And I really wanted to not do that. So using a lot of these same technologies, I was able to automate 90% of my newsletter process. So what happens is I can create a newsletter item in here. So if I create a newsletter item for today, and I put this as in progress, and let's say I'm going to talk about 5 things I automated with the Jamstack. I can then add a title. I can add an intro. So here is what I want to talk about. So I have that stream information. And then also inside of my streams, I still don't have that record. Interesting. Anyway, this will filter it out. But I have this newsletters record. I have my streams here. So if I have a stream that day, which I usually do my newsletter the same day I do my streams, which is on Friday. And then I also have, if you remember back to the Learn, Build, Teach table in Airtable, I have these records from people that they've shared that I may or may not have tweeted, but I also have this emailable flag to determine whether or not I can include one of those things in my newsletter. I also have an emailed Boolean to show that something has been emailed. And so what I do is I want to aggregate the intro for my newsletter. I want to have a few recent videos. So inside of my content, I have a promotion tab. So these are recent videos that are not too old that I can promote. Inside of here, I have all the information that I need, mainly the YouTube link over here. So I have all this information, and I just want to put it in one place. And so inside of the same project, I have this project. I have a generate newsletter. And what it does is it basically goes and grabs all those different pieces of information from Airtable and just outputs them as a raw HTML page. So if I go to that URL, we should see this is what it outputs to me. So notice up here, this title is the little bit of intro that I added in that newsletter section. So there's that. Then I have my recent videos. That's from that content promotion view in Airtable. So it grabs the title, the link, and the thumbnail. Also resize these thumbnails to try to make them not too big. Then I have links from Learn, Build, Teach, which are not coming through for some reason. Oh, because I haven't actually I'll show you why. Inside of here, I need to make sure that these things are emailable before they'll show up. So if I now refresh and generate this, I should get this link from the Learn, Build, Teach content. So again, just like I did with Tweetable, I go through and scan and say, these are the ones I want to include in the newsletter. And then I have a call out for the podcast that I run. And lastly, if I had a stream scheduled today, which in the demo, I don't know why, Becca, that thing's not coming through. Had we scheduled that stream for today, that thing would recognize that there's a stream today and pull that information, and you would see it in here as well. So from here, all I have to do is just like copy this entire page. So select all that, Command C. I can go into Podia, which is where I do my emails, and Command V to paste it all in. And then the newsletter's there. I may tweak some stuff, I may not, or I may just send it out as is. But it aggregates all this different information from these different places into one place that I can copy and paste into my email provider in Podia. All right. Next thing that I mentioned already is I run the weekly live streams in called Learning Quick. And what can be kind of tricky is like getting the different scenes for streams. So there's one scene where it's like my camera and their camera, and there's another scene where it's my camera, their camera, and then we're showing the desktop. So we're actually doing something hands-on. And when we're just like in cameras, like our camera side by side with no desktop, one of the things I want to do is show the guest Twitter handle that I'm working with, which is like, it seems like such a small thing, but either I would have to generate a new background image every time, or I would have to manually enter in that information into OBS, which is where I run my streams from, every time every time that changes, I would have to manually enter it into OBS. So instead of using OBS to generate those scenes, which is kind of a pain, I created a Gatsby application. So Gatsby is a framework built on top of React that will basically generate all these pages for me. And so inside of the pages directory, you can see there's a coding and a countdown and an index and an interview. Coding is where I'm just coding. Countdown is like the 5-minute countdown. Interview is where it's just me and the other person. Pairing is where it's me, the other person, and the desktop. And I wanted to be able to pull that in and automate it through code because it's easier for me to work with this in code than it is for me to do this inside of OBS. It's really just a pain to work with these scenes and things inside of OBS. So what I did was create that app that is deployed at jqqstreams.netlify.app. You can go to it. Some of this is not going to look 100% great because this is made to be at specific dimensions, which this, like right now in my browser, is not quite the right dimension. So you see like the text is overlapping, but it's made to be these exact same dimensions. And if you keep scrolling through these tabs, here is like me and my desktop. Then this one is me side by side with someone else. But notice that there's no name there for the guest. And that's what I didn't want to have to manually enter every time. So I realized inside of the streams, you can also imagine like had that submission come through and I had seen it in here, it would make even more sense. But if I had a stream where I had cool kid was my guest, is that like filtering out stream? Oh, maybe it's because it doesn't have. Well, anyway, I'm going to cheat here and move one of these. I think I messed up one of my automations beforehand, which is a reason for me to test this stuff before I do the demo. But let's say I move this stream with Jessica Chan, who is Coder on YouTube, who's amazing, you should check out. Move this stream to today, and then I refresh this page. What should happen is that it will call a serverless function to go and grab that information and then display it on this page. So whatever stream I'm running that day, it will make a call to Airtable to grab that appropriate information and then be able to display it inside of here automatically with me not having to do anything at all. So to show you really quickly what that looks like, there's a getStream function in here, serverless function, and it calls this getStream function here, which is inside of, well, let me just do this, Airtable. So this thing will go and query Airtable. It's looking for one record, and it's looking for a record where the difference between today and the date of the stream is 0, meaning that it's the stream that's going on today. And it returns the information that's in there, which does include the Twitter handle of the guest. So I've got a hook inside of React that I guess I need to show you the context. So this thing will make that request to the endpoint, and it will basically just keep track of that information. So I've got the information in here inside of my stream. If I look inside of my page for pairing, it uses the uStream hook I don't know why I'm getting errors here. And it uses that to then display the guest handle. So any information that comes from that record in Airtable, I'm only using the Twitter handle now, but I could use that to automatically update the pages for my different streams. And then all I have on inside of OBS, or actually on my Stream Deck, is I click buttons to switch between like this scene and this one. This is our pairing where it's both of us and the desktop. And then this one is just us side by side. So it'll automatically pull all that stuff in and be able to display it, although now it's just the Twitter handle. All right, the last one is around interactions. So this one I had a lot of fun with, but the most successful streams are interactive. People like to feel like they're part of the experience. They like to feel like they have influence on what's going on. And this is stuff I think most of you have probably seen. But I was kind of wondering, like, how do I make my streams interactive without having to manually do things? Like, how do I make it automatically interactive where people can do things and influence or change the output of what's on the stream? So I use Node.js. I use TMI.js, which is a library for building Twitch bots. I have the hue lights, which back on that thumb, there's a hue light bulb inside of that lamp. And an SDK that was actually created by a friend of mine called Brad Garapi. And I created a couple of custom packages for my setup to kind of simplify it on my end, to add a few interactions, mainly being like turning on and changing the lights behind me. So that's the one project I actually didn't open, which is okay. But if I come to my Twitch channel, and I'm going to go inside of here and go back to Twitch bots, and the James Q Quick one, and start this bot up. Oh, and I bet I probably broke this demo too. Rats. This may not work. You're seeing the first round of this demo. Because like the Wi-Fi got reset, which changes the IP that thing is on. I have the IP on my other computer, which is what I was doing this on beforehand. This may not work. But I think you've all probably seen it before, so you can believe me when I say that it does most of the time work. So the way Twitch works is the more you watch a channel, the more points you accumulate, and you can use points to redeem things like, anything that I create. So one of the things that I have is a lights on command, and I can redeem 100 points for that. And it actually did work. Nice. So this has got the right IP. So the light back there has come on. It's very subtle now with my different camera angle. So it's on, and then I can also do like a lights random command, and that should change it to a random color. So now it's white. And if I did the same thing again, it will be something else random, another green color. So that was the one thing that I did with the lights. And the other one was to change the theme inside of VS Code, which people have a lot of fun with, and it's actually pretty entertaining as I'm working, and people are just like changing stuff on the fly. But if I run a redemption for the random VS Code theme, if you look at the colors that this is now, I think this is a shades of purple, not 100% sure. If I run that, it should now change this to a new theme, which in this one now is Night Owl, which is created by Sarah Drasner. So this is like something I had a lot of fun with, that I created this Twitch bot, learned about how to listen for Twitch commands, learned about how to integrate with Hue light bulbs and their SDK, their API, and then also learned how to kind of hack the settings inside of VS Code. Basically what the code does is go in and manually update. If I look inside the settings tab, there's I don't even know how you get to it anymore. There's a JSON file that actually holds all of your setting information. So what it does is it goes into that settings file and literally just changes stuff to a random theme. So it replaces like theme, it replaces it with one of the random ones that it chooses. So I learned how to kind of hack that, and I can do basically anything I want. Like I can add commands for people to like change the size of my code, which would be really useful for them to like, if they can't see, they could just run a command to make it bigger, or any other kind of wild stuff, change the font, things like that. So that was the last demo here. This is from a different slide deck, which you typically wouldn't see if I was in full screen. So if you're interested in the slides, there's a slight caveat to that. I realized on my website that it's not displaying the link to the slides. So instead of going here, you can message me and I'll send the link, or I'll just add it in Discord. eventually that will be updated. So all of my talks and stuff will be on the talks page, including in the future all the links to the slides. And in the meantime, that's all I got.